Good morning, everybody. My name is Jenny Davis. I'm the principal of Piedmont Hills. Today, our topic is vaping. We have a guest speaker today with a presentation for us. AJ Guzman is from the Santa Clara County Office of Ed, and he is going to be presenting. If you guys have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat and we will make sure that we have a chance to answer all of the questions. There already is a question in the chat. AJ, I don't know if you see that and you want to do your presentation and get to that, or you want to answer that now, but I'm actually going to turn it over to you and let you take this.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Yes, I do see the question in the chat. Thank you so much for that question already. Feel free to add any of those questions in the chat and I'll be sure to get to those either before or probably during the presentation, just so we can flow a little bit better. But hi everyone, my name is AJ. I am a 2P specialist at the Santa Clara County Office of Education. And 2P stands for Tobacco Use Prevention Education. Thank you so much, Ms. Davis, and also Rupert for inviting me. I think we do this every year, so it's very important to us to be here every year to really let you all know about the effects of vaping and using cannabis as well. So I can go ahead and go into the presentation. Please be on mute throughout the presentation and put all your questions in the chat, or feel free to use any of the Zoom features like raising your hand if you have a question as well. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. At the end of the presentation, there is a poll everywhere, so we will be using that. It'll be like scanning the QR code and doing just 3 questions for us, but I can go ahead and walk you through that when that time happens. So this presentation is probably 30 to 45 minutes, just depending on the discussion that we have. I'll go ahead and get started. All right, so healthy body and healthy youth. This is what parents need to know about vaping and cannabis. I do want to share that Piedmont Hills High School is a 2P school, and every 2P school is a tobacco-free certified school. So that means that there is no vaping or smoking, and it is prohibited on any parts of the campus. So they should have all the signing that says no smoking and vaping, and also in different languages as well. So just want to throw that out there. Piedmont Hills is a 2P school, meaning that they are getting funding from us to get education on vaping and on vaping and cannabis, and making sure that their students on the campus are being educated on this topic. All right, so we can go ahead and get started just with the vaping section. So you may have seen these products before. So this kind of walks us through kind of the different generations of these products, right? So we all know what a traditional cigarette looks like. And then the tobacco companies kind of saw a decline in the usage of these products, and they wanted to create an electronic cigarette, also known as the e-cig. And you can see that is on the left-hand side right there. It was first on the market. It really resembled a traditional cigarette. And it was a way for the tobacco companies to target smokers to stop smoking. But in reality, it had a lot more nicotine in these products. So as you can see, it kind of morphed into these wax pens. And then we see the jewels coming up. And then obviously with the decline of Juul, because they were targeting youth with flavors, they're not really on the market anymore. But it kind of morphed into these pod-based systems which use a nicotine salt. And now we have the flumes, we have the elf bars, the flume bars, and stuff like that. So that is where we are right now with the disposable pods. They're still on the market, and they're super, super popular, and they are still being sold to minors as well. All right, so how many cigarettes are actually in a pod, right? So you can see that in 1 pack of cigarettes, there is 20 milligrams of nicotine, which is equal to 20 cigarettes, right? So it's in 1 pack. So in 1 Juul pod, there is 41.3 milligrams of nicotine. Nicotine is obviously the super addictive chemical that is in traditional cigarettes and also in these pods or these e-cigarettes as well. So there is in that little small jewel pod, there is about 41 cigarettes worth of nicotine in there. So it's super shocking. One puff bar, which is a disposable pod, meaning that the student or meaning that the user would use this product and then probably throw it away. And there is 50 milligrams of nicotine in there, which is about 50 cigarettes. So about 2.5 packs of cigarettes in there worth of nicotine, which is super, super alarming. We've heard stories from, from schools all over the county that youth are using these products in one day, in 1 week. So they're getting introduced to 2.5 packs of cigarettes just in that small device. So we have the Swarm pod, which is another disposable pod, and there is 90 milligrams of nicotine in there, which equals to about 90 cigarettes. So super, super alarming. And this is the slide that gets a lot of the parents as well. Yeah, it just has a lot of nicotine and a lot of basically a whole pack of cigarette in one little device. All right, so here are the devices that are super, super popular right now. See, these are the high capacity disposable pens that I kind of talked about a little bit. These are the rechargeable ones, so meaning that once the battery dies, they're able to recharge, and then they get a certain amount of puffs in there. So you can see the Elf bar. This is one super popular. It's rechargeable, has about 10 to 13 milliliters of salt nicotine worth in there. The Flume Floats, which resembles a baby bottle and comes in a variety of different flavors. All of these disposable pens come in a variety of different flavors, and they have a lot of nicotine in them as well. So you see it has 3,000 puffs worth in there, and then also the Flume Pebble, super popular as well, which includes vape juice and also salt nicotine in there as well. All right, so the nicotine effects. So nicotine is a super highly addictive substance that are in traditional cigarettes and also in these vape pens as well, or the e-cigarettes. You can see the number right there, the number is 25. That's because your brain is developing until about the age of 25. So with high school youth, their brain is still developing. They're figuring out what they like and what they don't like, what food they like, what music they like, their style and stuff like that, right? So when they introduce large amounts of nicotine into their brain, they're more susceptible to getting addicted because their brain is very, very fragile. It's still figuring out what it likes and what it doesn't like. It's still developing. So when you introduce high levels of nicotine, which is very, very highly addictive, they are more susceptible to getting addicted to these products. And that can cause an addiction at a very, very young age. So as those nicotine levels drop, the brain kind of craves that nicotine, which develop withdrawal symptoms and increased levels of anxiety and stress. And those withdrawal symptoms we will get into in the later parts of the presentation. But this is how an addiction can really start. And the tobacco industry knows this, and that's why they target youth. So when someone does vape or smoke in general, it does release dopamine in their brain. So dopamine is the pleasure chemical in your brain. So just getting a lot of dopamine getting introduced into their brain, which means they like it. And that is alarming because it's only for a short term, and that can cause an addiction because your brain starts to think that it needs a dopamine. It needs that dopamine to basically kind of live, and it comes very dependent on it. So just main things that I want you all to kind of get from this slide is that their brain is developing until about the age of 25, and nicotine is a very highly addictive substance, and there's a higher risk of youth getting addicted to these products because their brain is still developing. All right, so we all know that it directly affects the lungs. And there's only one good thing that is good for your lungs, and that is oxygen. That is the air outside. Even the air outside is still bad for you because of the pollution, but still only oxygen is good for your lungs. If you introduce anything other than oxygen to your lungs, it is super, super, it can be a high risk for your lungs. So So starting off with the inflammation, irritation of the airways, and there's also the destruction of air sacs in the lungs. So your lungs are made of little tiny air sacs, and introducing smoke or the aerosol from these e-cigarettes can really destruct the little air sacs and really scar your lungs. And also it can weaken the immune response to infection, which can increase the risk of getting COVID as well. All right, so it does directly hit the heart as well. It can increase the risk for blood clotting and also stiffen the blood vessels, making it harder for the heart to receive oxygen, also to move blood throughout your body. It can increase the risk of, in long-term use of these products, it can increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, and cardiovascular disease as well. It can also increase acid reflux, which can really mess up the lining in your esophagus as well. All right, so why flavors? So these products come in a variety of flavors. There are over 15,000 flavors out there. That includes food flavors, minty flavors, fruity flavors, flavors that they even made up. And the tobacco industry uses flavors to target youth because they know that it will capture their attention and it will make them want to use their products even more. So these flavors are used as a way to mask the smell, because we all know that the traditional cigarettes are super like they stink. Like we don't really like the smell of them. So they wanted to create a new device that has a variety of flavors that smell good, that probably taste better, and that also have a less harsh hit on the throat as well. So what happens when there's a less harsh hit on the throat? Users are more inclined to use the product even more and more, which means they're getting introduced to more and more nicotine and all of the other toxins in there as well. So that's why they created all these flavors, but it does show that these flavors do not mask what it can still do to the body. Just because it might smell good, just because it might taste good, does not necessarily mean that it is still better for your body. You're still getting introduced to the high levels of nicotine. You're still getting introduced to all the heavy metals and toxins. You're still getting introduced to all the carcinogens, which are cancer-causing chemicals, and it's still very bad. So there's also like the secondhand and third-hand smoke, but we call it aerosol because it is not a vapor. It is actually an aerosol. And aerosol is like basically a cloud of chemicals that are super bad for your body. And the aerosol can still affect people around you. If someone were to vape in front of you and you're the one inhaling it, known as secondhand aerosol, you're still being introduced to all of those toxins as well. All right, so this all goes into the industry manipulation. The tobacco and vape industry just want to create a lifelong addiction out of young teens, and they want to basically just get their money, because if you're addicted to something and you're still using their product for the rest of your life, you're just basically giving your money over to the vape industry. So they know that teens are super impressionable. They know that teens' brains are still developing. They know that e-cigarettes are kind of cool and they're like part of the culture. So they want to create all these different devices that will really entice the youth. They want to create all these flavors that will really capture the youth as well. They go to where youth are on social media. They do all this marketing and all this, and all these videos as ways for youth to get captured through social media to really use their products as well. So that is why they want to capture the attention of youth, because they know that they will get addicted at a very young age. All right, so this is from the California Student Tobacco Survey from the Public Health. A public health department chooses random schools throughout the county, and they give a survey to youth to basically answer questions as it relates to tobacco products and also mental health as well. So this is from 2019 and 2020. They're still developing the most recent California Student Tobacco Survey, and they will be coming out with a newer one soon. So I'll be sure to share that with all of our schools, also with the parents as well. But this just goes into that 1 in 4 students who have ever used the product was a tobacco product, and just want to really highlight the left-hand side right there. So overall, students are using these products, but also the vapes are the highest tobacco product that is being used amongst high school students in Santa Clara County. So just want to be sure that that you all know that vapes are still the most popular product that are being used among high school students. All right, so what are some of the reasons why youth are using? You can see that one of the highest ones is their friends use them. So we all know that peer pressure is super, super big amongst the youth. If their friends are using it, or if their older peers are using it as well, they're probably more inclined to use it. So it's like a social thing if they get introduced to it through their friends. Also, they come in lots of flavors. So you can see that it is a big one as well, as youth are, I guess, curious about the flavors and want to try all the different ones. They also look interesting and cool. Once again, with a different constant generating of these newer products, they just want to keep using the newer ones. They want to see what's out on the market. And that's why they use as well. And also the misconception that they're healthier than cigarettes. So yes, that is a really big one, that youth think it's healthier just because it's a vapor, but it's doesn't smell bad or anything like that. So they think that they're healthier than cigarettes. So that's why we are here. We're here to educate the youth and also the parents as well about the misconception of that. All right, so mental health is a really big thing amongst the youth right now. Every high school and every middle school and probably elementary school as well has a mental health or like a wellness center now, because it's super important just to talk about. But students who rated their mental health as poor had over twice the current use of these products, and who rated their mental health as good to excellent. So this just goes to show that students who are rating their mental health as poor were using these products, and they probably are using these products as a way to cope with any life stressors that may be happening in their life. And that's why we go to the high schools and stuff to really tell youth that there are healthier ways to cope with any life stressors that may be happening in their lives. So that's why it's important to really note this, that students may be using these products because of what's going on in their mental, and just want to make sure that they're taking care of that. And also talk to parents. Less than 1 in 4 parents reported, or 1 in 4 students reported that their parent or guardian had talked to them about the risks of vaping. So that is why we're here today. We're just here to continue the discussion at home as they're getting this education at school as well, but making sure that the parents are equipped with the knowledge as well, to really have an effective discussion about these products to their parent, or with their parents, and also to your child as well. Make sure that like what are actually in these vapes, and that they're being targeted at a young age. All right, so before we do go into the cannabis section, I do want to go into the chat. I don't think we don't have anything in the chat, but feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we go on. But I will go ahead and kind of transfer over into the cannabis section. So cannabis is a super, super old plant. It has a variety of different names. We tend to ask the students, like, what are the names that you heard of cannabis? And as the names of cannabis, it can kind of tell how old people are, as we see teachers, saying the names saying the names that they know of cannabis, and then also comparing it to the youth right now. Has very different names, but just for the sake of this presentation, we are going to be calling it cannabis, which is the scientific term. So what is cannabis? All right, so cannabis has 2 components that are in it. It is a plant, and it has THC and also CBD. So THC is tetrahydrocannabinol. I know, super, super long, but we just call it THC. So THC is a psychoactive component that is in cannabis. And this is what gets people high, basically. CBD is a non-psychoactive component. um, and it doesn't get the user high. CBD can be seen in like, what is it, like the beauty products as well, and it is like out on the shelves, as you can see, like in any market. But THC is usually in a dispensary, and you have to be over 21 to use it. And once again, it is what gets people high, and it is very addictive as well, as we found. All right, so the cannabis products, this is just the different ways that people could use cannabis, the joints, blunts, and spliffs. So the alarming thing about blunts is that if it is wrapped in the tobacco leaf, which means they're getting introduced to the effects of tobacco, but also with the effects of cannabis as well. It also comes in CBD oils, tinctures, and CBD capsules as well. Bongs or pipes, which uses the water um, to filter out. Basically, that's a really big misconception, but it is used to filter. They think it's used to filter out the bad stuff, but in reality, you're just getting more and more smoke out of the cannabis. Edibles, which we will get into, are super alarming as well. Dabs, which is basically like THC wax. They take out all of the wax they take out all the THC from the cannabis, and it is in a wax form. So it is very high in THC. And then the wax pens as well, which go hand in hand with e-cigarettes or vapes, which we see out in the schools as well, which basically has the wax oils, but is in a vape pen form. All right, so there are two ways that cannabis can be consumed, and that is, one way is through inhalation. Smoke is smoke. Just because it's cannabis, it doesn't mean it's different from any tobacco product. You're still getting introduced to smoke you're still introducing smoke into your lungs. So people that have been using cannabis, it can actually leave up four times the amount of tar in your lungs as cigarettes. So tar is basically like what keeps the concrete together. It's like all that slimy black stuff. So that is what is going to be in someone's lungs. All right, and then I did mention this, using a bong or a pipe does not filter out any of the harmful chemicals. Just think that because there's water in there, it filters out any of the harmful stuff in there. But in reality, it just basically does nothing. It just gets more and more smoke into your lungs. So vaping cannabis is also not a safe alternative as well. We got introduced to EVALI, which is e-cigarette vaping product use associated lung injury, super long, we just call it EVALI. We got introduced to that right before the pandemic, actually. There were a lot of youth, 16 to 21-year-olds, using both wax pens and nicotine pens as well. And they were going to the hospitals for a collapsed lung. And they were counting how many youth were going to the hospitals. There were so many social media campaigns of youth in hospital beds on ventilators with papers, holding up papers telling youth not to vape anymore because their lungs were scarred and they were collapsing. Obviously, with the pandemic happening, it kind of took over everything, but EVALI is still happening. There are still youth, going into the emergency rooms for this, but it was because of the dual usage. So they were using both vape pens with nicotine and also with vape pens with wax pens. All right, so edibles. So this is another way that cannabis could be consumed. In edibles, it could be baked goods, gummies, or candy in candy form, and is basically laced with THC. So what happens when someone does eat an edible, it goes through the digestive system, and that means it just takes longer to feel the effects. So what happens when a youth takes, one edible, you take another edible because they don't feel it, take another one, that means they're gonna start to feel the effects of THC at a very high rate because they think that they're not feeling it quick enough. So that just means it leads into a THC overdose. So I know THC overdose is probably a different term that not a lot of people have learned about. but that doesn't mean that you necessarily die from it. It just means that you have to go to the hospital because you're feeling the effects at a very, very high rate. People are starting to feel nauseous. People have an altered perception. So they start hearing or seeing things that aren't there. They start to get very high levels of paranoia as well. And we have been seeing a lot of this with edibles. Me and my team went to a conference that was hosted by Colorado, because as you all know, or as you all should know, Colorado is one of the first states to legalize marijuana. And um, they were seeing youth in Colorado at least once a week coming in for an edible overdose or a THC overdose because they're just taking way, way, way too much of these edibles because it's easy to consume too much. So that is why it's important to know that it's very alarming, and that taking too much is way too easy, and just because youth get impatient with wanting to feel the effects of marijuana. And as you can see on the last bullet here, the amount of THC varies. There's no way to tell the amount of THC in a dose. There's not an instrument that could really tell how much THC are actually in any of these products. So it could say 5 milligrams, but in reality, it could be 5 to 7, it could be 5 to 10 milligrams, or even less as well. So there's really no way of, measuring how much THC are actually in a dose. All right, so brain function and hierarchy of survival. So using these products, it does release dopamine into the brain, which is the pleasure chemical. And once you introduce high levels of THC, it starts to become dependent on it as well, because you're introducing the THC to the brain, and it releases dopamine as well. So THC can actually negatively impact the brain development in children and young adults because you're still developing the hierarchy of survival basically in your brain. So there are things that we need to survive. There's shelter, food, sleep, shelter, food, sleep, that we need to survive, right? But if you're introducing cannabis at very high levels of THC, people's brains start to think that they need it for survival. And we all know that the brain is still developing until about the age of 25. So they start to become dependent on it, and that is how an addiction starts. So leading into the addiction, so cannabis can be very, very addicting, more so if your brain is still developing. That can actually develop cannabis use disorder. And this statistic right here, 9 out of 10 people that struggle with addiction started before they were adults. So there's a room of 30 kids. There will be probably 3 people that in that classroom that do not struggle with addiction before they were adults. So it's a very, very alarming statistic right there, as people start in addiction before they become an adult. All right, so here are the short-term effects of using these products. The red eyes, dry mouth, also known as cotton mouth, skin sensation, muscle relaxation, impaired motor function, memory loss. We're seeing that with the high levels of THC right now, people aren't remembering periods of times. They're not remembering what's happening like throughout the whole day. Like everything's basically a blur. The THC or the cannabis now is not the same cannabis that was back in the day. The cannabis industry realized that people love the feeling that THC is giving them, which means that they wanted to increase the THC levels in any cannabis product. And because of that, they have the hybrids now, they have sativa, indica, they have so many different kinds of cannabis. And with the increased rates of THC in these products, students or youth are getting more and more addicted to cannabis products. Paranoia is a super, super big one. Imagining stuff that isn't there, altered perception as well. That is how it can lead to, the cannabis use disorder, but also the THC overdose as well. Increased appetite, which is munchies, and also to the delayed response, and people do feel pleasure as well. All right, so marijuana use amongst high school students in the Santa Clara County. This is also from the California Student Tobacco Survey. So of the students who use the marijuana, nearly 1 in 2 students reported that they use it with a tobacco product. That just goes to show that youth are using both products, but also using blunts as well to consume marijuana. So they're getting introduced to nicotine, but also to the high THC levels as well. So here are the reasons why youth are using the cannabis. This is also from the California Student Tobacco Survey from 2017, 2018. 41% is to relax, 19% is to have a good time with friends, 18% to get high. So you can see just from the first three, 41% just to relax, to probably take their minds off of things as a way to cope with anything, like I mentioned before, with mental health, and also to have a good time with friends. It just shows that peer-to-peer influence is super, super big, and youth are getting introduced to it through their friends. All right, so we are just gonna kind of shift gears a little bit and kind of talk about mental health and substance use. So youth may use these products as a way to deal with any mental health challenges, such as using these e-cigs, vapes, or cannabis. But it's very important, at least just for the parents here, to encourage students or to encourage your child to really use a healthier way to cope with anything, whether it's exercising, music, reading, weightlifting or anything like that. So really finding healthier ways to cope with any mental health challenges or stress that they may be going through. We find that youth are using these products because of this, and it's important to really start that conversation at home and finding a healthier way. So there are negative coping mechanisms and healthy coping mechanisms. The negative coping mechanisms are basically like smoking, vaping, or using any of these products because they may feel good for a short term, but they are still harming their body and their minds. So just really finding that healthy coping mechanism as a way for them to maybe go through any mental health challenges. All right, so we do have a parent card deck that can really help a parent talk to their student or talk to their child about any of this. So I can probably send some over to Piedmont Hills, just so you'll have access to it. We also have it in Spanish as well, and it's just like basically questions that you could really start to ask your child if they are using these products. All right, so it's just here are some tips just for talking to teens. It's important to really listen, really coming from a health perspective and really provide support and ask open-ended questions. They're not the ones to blame as they are constantly being targeted by these companies. So it's really important just to learn, really to learn and listen from them. Also, the flavors are a super, super big thing. And it really makes the vaping appear to be safe. And it's also a marketing tactic from the companies as well. Really talk science, really talk about how the high levels of nicotine, high levels of THC can really affect their brain. It can really really start an addiction at a very young age, and just really explain how it works. High levels of nicotine and THC can very, very much affect a student's brain. And really learn more. I think you all being here is you all are learning just about these products. So you all are already taking the first step to really learn more and take the time to really do your research and really maybe come as one as parents and really figure out like, oh, did you hear about this or did you hear about that? And really create a community off of it to really have a healthier school site and healthier teens. And just some more tips, really know the facts, be patient and be ready to listen. Also set a positive example as well as youth tend to look up to their parents and people around them. And it's really starting the conversation, asking for support and finding the right moment. And also answer their questions as well, keeping it open-ended and just keeping the conversation going, remain connected, remain, encouraging, and to really share the facts and resources with them as well. All right. Before we do start this, I do want to get to the questions. All right. So curious about school campaign. What communications have been done? So, all right. Thank you, Rupert, for answering that. There is a school-wide lesson. Yes, thank you, Rupert. They're getting the curriculum from the Stanford students, the Stanford curriculum, and they create a whole bunch of slides and modules for teachers to teach their students at school. How's school controlling it? I realize it may be tough to supervise all these instances. I see a lot of kids vaping as they go on campus in the morning. I also understand the importance starts at home. Awesome. I was informed about vaping and smoking. The dance last week. It was last year. It can be defined. All right. I believe that is just a school question. What are the consequences for getting caught? Here at Tupi, we do encourage alternatives to suspension. So that's like restorative circles or any brief intervention. So that would be either us coming in and getting a circle with students who are caught vaping and really giving them the education, but also giving them questions that makes them think about why they're using. And also counselors on Piedmont Hills High School campus should be trained in brief intervention, which is like one-on-one motivational interviewing.
Yeah, I can interject with responses for the school. So we have upped our surveillance of the restrooms and going in there and doing sweeps to make sure that students aren't vaping in the restrooms. Certainly, you know, the comment about vaping at the homecoming dance, I mean, I certainly hope not. I was at the homecoming dance, definitely did not see that. But then again, there were 800 kids there. So, you know, could we have missed something? I will admit that certainly we could have missed something. Mr. Corbett, I think, is on. Can talk more about the consequences. I don't know if he's able to do that, but if he's able to jump in, then we'll let him. Virginia, you have your hand up, so.
Yes, thank you so much, AJ, for being here and providing this presentation. It's great and valuable information. As an advocate, I do have a question that you may or may not have the answer to, but as you mentioned, mental health is real. And, you know, it's for everyone, parents, students, everyone, guardians. How do we address teens who have, like you mentioned, parents who are vaping, who are using cannabis? Yeah, you know, and it's just, it trickles down. How do you address, you know, when they see it at home and that's the example they're giving, and, you know, they're being told, well, we decided to do this, like you mentioned, instead of doing that, you know, so then that's what the student gets and they come to school and then, you know, they're around their peers. So it's a whole domino effect. How do we advocate for those students?
Yeah, we get this question a lot as when we do, you know, restorative circles with, you know, even middle schoolers. They do share that it does come from family members, older family members, also parents as well. We're just there to, you know, really be there for them, have multiple sessions with them, and just letting them know about the harms of it, obviously, also letting them know that that it may be normal in your household, but it's not normal outside of your household. And you know, them spreading it to their peers and to their friends, you know, it can really affect their peers and, you know, negatively. So I don't think there's like really one straight answer for that, because it does, you know, it does start at home. But it just has to be a continuous like education and continuous I guess restorative practices that need to happen with them. I wish I did have an answer, like a straight answer for like how to solve it, because this is like a discussion that we have, you know, within my team as well. Like how do we really solve this at home? But yeah, it's just more so getting to the child and getting to the youth multiple times.
Thank you.
Sean, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you as well for this session. It's so important and well done so far. The specific question was just tapping on to what you were saying earlier about the consequences. Are the parents notified? That's really one of my most important questions.
If we catch them on campus, are they notified?
Correct.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And then AJ, there is a question in the chat. I'm sorry, Sean, were you done? I cut you off.
No, yes, I was done. Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry. And then AJ, question in the chat about the how much do these vape products cost? Are they getting more expensive or cheaper? Where do most kids get them?
Yeah, so yes, Rupert, you are right with the price range. They're maybe around like $12 to, and they can range all the way up to $50 as well. We do hear that youth are getting it from people selling them off social media. So they're older kids probably buying them in bulk, and then they're just being sold basically like in the black market off of social media. So that's how we've been hearing from other schools and other students as well. And also there are smoke shops that are illegally selling them, and they know that they're by a school, and then all the students will go there and they will sell it to underage people. And also with enforcement with us, we're just here to educate. And then we just tell like the public health department what's going on, what stores are doing it, and then that's how the enforcement will come in and solve it from there.
Yeah, and Grace, in answer to your observation about kids vaping in the bathroom, we are well aware this has been a constant problem. It's not just a Piedmont Hills problem, it's a problem at every single high school. I have a son in high school. I know it's a problem at his high school. It's, we don't, like I said, we monitor and we do sweeps in the bathroom more often. We definitely are picking up, and, like this is, as a school and our discipline team, like this, they agreed at the start of the school year, like this was going to be our focus, that we were really going to crack down on this year. We are starting slowly to see the results of this, where we're starting to see less and less of this, that like the, effort we've been putting in hopefully is having a positive effect, but it's slow going. It's yeah, it's a problem. I'm not gonna lie, it's a problem. This is the focus of our school-wide lesson that we're doing, that Mr. Rosales mentioned. The date of that school-wide lesson is November 7th, 6th, 7th, whatever that Tuesday is that week. I think it's the 7th. That is the date of the school-wide lesson. So in just about 10 days is when we're doing that. And that is part of our education of for all of the students. Any additional? Yes, and it is a collaborative effort, which is why we make this a topic every year, because we can't tackle this at home. We can't just tackle this at school. We need your support at home. And that's why one thing I love about doing this presentation is that you guys seeing what the vape products look like. Because if you're like me, you're Gen X, you grew up and it was just packs of cigarettes, and we all know what that looks like. But now, like the technology with this, and if I didn't have this presentation every year, I wouldn't know what these devices look like, and I wouldn't even like really think twice about them. So that's why I find it really helpful, so that you as parents can know, and like if you see something, you actually know what it is. And so that is really important. Okay, any final questions? We're running up to the end of our time. AJ, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate this. I will send this video out. AJ, would you be willing to share the slides with me that you sent out, and then I can send out a PDF of the slides? That would be, I think, helpful to all the parents. And so I can send that out this afternoon. thank you guys. Thank everybody for joining us. This was a big crowd today. I saw some new faces, so I'm really happy that you joined us. Next week, our topic is the importance of sleep. For all of us parents too, but how to get your teenager to sleep more and realize that it's actually very important, because that's one thing that teenagers, they tend to poo-poo. I'm like, oh, that's not that important. Sleep is not that big of a deal. It is so, so important. So that is what we're going to talk about next week. Okay. Thank you, AJ, for sending the slides. And thank you for the resources. Really appreciate that. Okay. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful
AJ.
rest of your week. All right.